If I asked you to reimagine your future, a path that looks different from what society expects of you, from what everyone around you expects of you, what would it look like? I've always thought that my future would be one that my parents wanted for me, getting married to a man, having children, and taking over my family medical business. But instead, I'm an activist, a community builder, a pretty good realtor, and recently diagnosed with ADHD. And together with my wife, we are both mothers to a 13-month-old baby girl. However, my life did not always look like this. I'm pretty sure my parents did not expect my life to turn out this way either. And for a long time, I thought I would never be able to have a future in Singapore, where I could be my authentic self. My parents barely spoke English and were both very conservative and very Chinese. They sent me to a school that imparted similar traditional values that they held dear, hoping that I too would grow up to be a demure, feminine, young lady raised on Confucian values. Well, I guess I did not turn out the way that they expected, as you can tell. It was sometime in primary school when I realized that I was a little bit different, but it was really in high school that these differences became amplified. I started crushing on girls, and if any of you know how it was like studying in the 90s in a conservative school environment, you know that's a recipe for a disaster. Most of us do not want to stand out in high school. You know, sometimes it's just easier to go through life with the flow, and standing out could really mean getting into trouble with your teachers and your parents. So I chose to hide myself. That all changed when I went to Australia to study. It was there that I met new friends who were all so sure, so confident of themselves, and that kind of helped me slowly come to terms with who I was. Being away from Singapore felt like a fresh start for me at 19, even though Melbourne was not going to be a permanent home. When I returned to Singapore, after my undergraduate studies in Melbourne, I retreated back into the closet again. I was back living under my parents' roof, but I was dressing and presenting myself in a much more androgynous manner. My mother had an inkling that her only child was probably not straight and asked in a threatening manner if I had been influenced by Western values and turned lesbian. It doesn't work that way. Having grown up in a challenging environment, I knew it was not safe for me to come out, even in my mid-20s. So I decided to conceal my true self once again. I even contemplated entering into a fake marriage with gay friends who were in similar predicaments, just to make our parents happy. In hindsight, it would have been so sad to live a lie. And I'm glad that we did not go through with it. The turning point for me was the Aware saga, an incident that took place in 2009 when a group of conservative religious women tried to take over Aware, a feminist organization. I always thought that Singaporeans were apathetic about politics and certainly would not care about a group of conservative women infiltrating a feminist organization. I could not have been more wrong. There was a huge uproar where thousands of women and male allies showed up, made a stand, and voted the conservative women out of the organization. It was then that I realized there was hope for civil society in Singapore, that people cared about equality, fairness, and justice. It stirred something in me and made me realize that I wanted to do more now that I'm back home in Singapore. It was also the same year when the first Pink Dot event took place in Hong Lim Park. For those who are unfamiliar, Pink Dot is a yearly event where people gather at a park dressed in pink to support the LGBTQ community and advocate for a more inclusive Singapore. I remember being a participant at the very, very first Pink Dot in 2009, and I was shocked that LGBTQ people could gather in public in the daylight without being arrested. I wanted to do more, but I didn't know how to, so I started commenting furiously on social media about issues I cared about. I would get so angry at every little thing that I deemed unjust, unequal, or unfair, something that I think some of you might relate to. I was constantly raging online. I also started sponsoring Pink Dot upon realizing that they needed funds to run the event yearly. Eventually, after countless angry comments and Facebook posts, I must have attracted the attention of the then Pink Dot organizing committee, because a friend who was part of the committee reached out and asked if I would like to join the committee. And then I did, and my life changed forever. I was juggling my postgraduate studies at the National University of Singapore, where I was also the vice president and the team manager of the NUS Muay Thai fight team, coaching at an all-female Muay Thai gym as well, while being a committee member in Pink Dot, handling social media. I realized that I could make a difference from where I was, being in Pink Dot, putting out information and resources to help others, creating the yearly event to help people become their authentic self, and to reimagine a Singapore free from discrimination, even if it meant just one day out of an entire year. Every year, LGBTQ people show up at Pink Dot to stand for a more inclusive Singapore. And for a long time, we've been asking for the repeal of Section 377A. The Penal Code Section 377A, a law left behind by our former British colonial masters that hung over the heads of our LGBTQ community. It criminalized our community, making our love illegal, with trickle-down effects on many policies impacting equal access to public housing, marriage equality, family formation, media representation, affirming healthcare, and so on. And although the law has now been repealed in 2022, after 15 years of campaigning, many issues still plague the community today, which means our activism does not stop with the repeal of Section 377A. Ever since I joined the Pink Dot Organizing Committee 11 years ago, I became aware of the amount of work required behind the scenes as activists to push for policy change, to change society's opinions of the LGBTQ community, and to advocate for a more equal Singapore. I guess I channeled my outrage on social media into activism, but I also wanted to do more for the LGBTQ community to come together in the daytime on a regular basis to participate in fun and wholesome activities. So together with my best buddy Claudia and my partner Collie, who is the director of Prout, we began creating many community events such as queer trivia, book swaps, scavenger hunt, food tours, and even speed dating events. In almost 6 years, we must have run about 100 events in total, all while 3 of us were managing our day jobs. We created these events because we wanted queer people and allies to be educated on social issues, to compete against one another, to find their tribe, and more importantly, to be able to do this all year round. We want our queer community to be themselves, even if the society we are in isn't exactly friendly to us. This was important to all 3 of us, as we grew up without much positive queer role models or inclusive spaces that allowed us to be who we are. But living your authentic self is one thing, and being able to live full lives is another. I began to ask myself, what kind of future do I want for myself? The advocacy and community work that I do nourishes me and makes me feel whole, but I wanted more. Those in power made it clear that same-sex marriage will not be legalized, nor will we be able to start a family after the repeal of Section 377A. I did not want to wait another 15 years for things to change. So instead of waiting for the laws to change and for society to finally accept us for who we are, my partner Collie and I got married 2 years ago in Singapore and in Australia. We were surrounded by our chosen family. Then in 2023, we embarked on our fertility journey where our daughter was born. We created our little family with not just the support of our chosen family, but also our biological family from both sides. I'm 41 years old now, and it has been a long journey to get to where I am. If you had asked me if I could imagine the life, 20 years ago of what I have right now, I would have said it was totally unimaginable. While our marriage and our little rainbow family aren't recognized in Singapore, it does not stop me from the advocacy and the community work that I do. Nor does it stop me from following my dreams to carve out my own path and reimagine a life for me and my loved ones. On days when I feel dejected and beaten down by what I see online or in society or in the world, or question why I should continue to do the work that I do, I'm reminded of the terrified, closeted young person who is unable to come out, just like I was in my younger days. I'm reminded of the policies and society that I hope to change so that my community can be included and feel that they too can have a future in Singapore. I'm reminded that what I do will hopefully create a better and kinder future for my family, especially for my child. As Asians, we have been brought up to believe that life is only complete when you are married by 29 to the opposite sex, have kids, have a house, have a great job, have a fancy car, because it is safe. And as Asian parents, our parents want us to live a safe life, just like the rest of society, because it is an easier life without discrimination. I say it is okay to be different. There is beauty in diversity and in being outside of the norm. So I say, be a troublemaker, find your own path, find your own tribe, even if it means it is outside society's expectations of marriage and parenthood, if that is what you want. Your difference will be embraced by people who love you. And you get to decide how you want your future to look like. And there are more ways than one to get to it. Thank you very much.